Hello everyone, welcome to Better Buttons. This is our first episode in our new video series, basically working on some new improvement topics and other things like that. I am Unrivaled Sage. I'm joined here by my friend Cappy.
What's up, guys?
So we're going to go ahead and do our first episode here based around fundamentals and kind of what they are and how to improve them.
Yep.
So
I say we jump right in.
agreed.
So this will just be more of a conversation than bullet points.
Yeah. So I think a good place to start with fundamentals is to kind of break down like what falls within fundamentals to like, because someone could be like a really good player, like they might have a firm understanding of like a punish, and like, oh, if he up tilts me, I know I can get this, and like I think that's a part of fundamentals. But there's also something more to it, like understanding neutral, understanding offense, defense, things like that.
Yeah. The stuff that's not so apparent when playing. There's some fundamentals that every player has a kind of innate understanding of, like punishing. When you're at a high percent, don't run in blindly, or something like that. But there's a deeper level that a lot of players don't touch.
Agreed. So I think a good place to start is to jump in and go ahead and talk about like each layer of fundamentals and like kind of what we view fundamentals as.
Yeah. So luckily, both of us view them.
Yeah,
roughly the same.
We were talking about this earlier.
Yeah,
we both have a very like an equal view of kind of how this game's fundamentals play out.
I think the only different thing we have is neutral.
Yeah. So neutral will kind of be the last thing that we're going to talk about and like what it means to each of us.
If you want, we can kind of. I have my list.
Yeah,
right
let's
here.
go ahead and bullet point because I think we said the exact same bullet points.
So our basic, like a really basic view of what fundamentals are for both of us would be spacing, positional awareness, option coverage or option selects, mounting offense and defense, which is basically like I would include reaction time in that.
That's definitely like a very key trait of defensive players.
Yeah, identifying habits, mid-match and mid-game even, and then neutral itself.
Yeah. And then I think going in with neutral is also like the three states of this game.
Yes.
We were talking about this earlier in that I view the three states in this game as entirely neutral, so no player's at an advantage. Advantage state and disadvantage state when one player is an advantage when he has just like more options available to him than the opponent.
Right. And then disadvantage is just you flip that.
Yeah, vice versa. So let's go ahead and we'll just jump straight down the list then.
Yeah, we can just go down the list. I think.
Yeah.
We'll just jump around. Definitely, a lot of these. Keep in mind as we're going through this, that a lot of these flow together.
Yeah, if you're gonna understand your basic fundamentals, like eventually it needs to be kind of that complete package. Yeah. And you definitely see even in some players like one part of their fundamentals is greater than their others. But it's something that you need to balance, and you can't just be a player that's like, oh, I have amazing reads and or I have amazing punishes, and I can 0 to 80 you, but my neutral is let me run in and grab 600 times till it works.
Right, or you're amazing at making reads, but if a player is too defensive and too safe to really make that read, then you start crumbling, or something. You know how to like read someone when applying pressure, but if someone can counter that pressure, you're done, or something like that.
So like when you're looking for when you're like applying pressure or you're playing defensively and you're trying to make these adaptations based on your opponent, like what do you jump into right away? Like how are you trying to get the reads? Okay,
so let me break down. Let's break down like what happens when we start a match actually. Like let's break down what happens when we start a match.
Yeah, we can go through it like really slowly and talk about the mentality that we go through, like from the second it says go into like what each position does.
So like let's go really quickly through like a mock match, okay? Let's start right here at the character select screen.
Okay, yeah.
This is part of it.
Because I think even this like is a mental battle when you're talking.
I don't think now to be completely honest, I don't think matchups are a fundamental aspect. I think they're character interactions, and I don't think that's fun. Like it's fundamental to the game itself, but not to you as a competitive player.
Right, and we're gonna have a whole episode based on that sometime later.
So, putting matchups aside, look at the player that you're playing, not the matchup. If you're going in blind, this is kind of worthless. But if if you've seen this player play, you can mentally prepare right here, based on the character they choose. If you know they play more than one character, and your own character, and their style and your style. How am I going to start this game? Like, do I know him well enough to feel him out, like to not feel him out, or do I need that extra experience in the first minute of the game, or even the first game itself?
That can be so crucial for some players looking for especially there are a lot of characters. I mean, the game has so many characters, over 55. So
right, and you'll see it all the time. Watch any tournament set from Genesis 3. Most likely, you'll see the two players maybe haven't seen each other a lot, or they haven't met ever, and they start playing, and it's just a really weird, defensive, not a lot going on. Everyone's getting off their patented combo or something, and then it just stops happening.
I think the biggest example, and we'll go ahead and put up the video, I'll link it in the description, is Zero.
Yeah.
Just in general, I mean, that's kind of his first stock is almost always even no matter who he's playing against, even if he's played them 100 times, he feels them out first stock.
He's like, how are they going to play this game?
Yeah.
And then he adjusts.
Yeah, and you always see that second stock. He just comes in and turns it on.
So let's say that. So Sage and I have played each other quite often.
Yeah.
So if we start right now and he's going Toon Link, stages doesn't really matter here. We're just gonna go to battle.
Yeah. So, we can do a whole other episode about the stage select screen.
So while the fundamentals are important, there's other aspects of the game that you need to learn that we'll go into. But
so right here,
these key things.
Right here, jumping into this specific moment. As soon as it says go, for me personally, I have an option in mind that I want to kind of start with. I know it's gonna be a safe option.
Right.
I never want to start off with something. I'm not gonna run up and up smash him. I mean, maybe if I play him enough and I maybe know his habits, but for me as a Toon Link player, a lot of the times my first options I want to kind of see how they react to projectiles right away.
Yeah.
Because I'm immediately trying to understand the play style I'm up against. So my first option is either I'm going to probably fall down boomerang because I do want to get down low on the stage. I don't want him to allow him to pressure me on the platform, or I'm going to run off a little towards him, apply a little bit of pressure, and probably Zaire, and play safe that way. And I think that first interaction that you take can really give you if you analyze it like that, okay, if I run off and forward air aggressively, how he reacts to it can really give you an example of that type of player.
Yeah.
If you run off forward air and he drops drops from platform shields and then rolls behind you right away, you know that he's looking for, basically he's trying to get behind you and he's trying to capitalize big punishes.
Right.
Whereas if he immediately if you forward air a shield and he immediately retreats and resets, you know that you're up against a much more defensive player.
Right.
Because a lot of people, their habits and their playstyle comes out in that first 5 seconds.
Oh yeah. So and when I'm playing, I generally don't like to. I'm not a big fan of defensive at first. I kind of do this. I like to go in and see exactly what's going on. I want to go in. So let's play for a second.
Okay.
So if I go in, right there. So we both went in. So at that point, I'm okay. He's either aggressive to try and see how I'm going to react, or he thinks that I'm just going to run in and try and do something, and he knows that he has the advantage because of range, because of a projectile. That's a little more
disjoints. That's it varies from character to character.
So if he understands his own spacing against my character, and he knows that his zone is a little safer, and he's just running in because he knows that, or is he running in to see what I'm doing?
Right, but now you've taken away that initial point. You've established two ideas.
Yeah.
And that's the adaptation that you're now playing against within neutral. So it's either is he just testing my options and seeing how I play, or is he an aggressive player?
Right.
And I think the next 3 to 4 interactions that you go with kind of will define that.
Right.
So immediately after I landed the Zaire, instead of choosing to follow up, I pulled back.
Right.
So that can right away tell you I had a hit and I could have confirmed that into grab,
right,
or I could have confirmed it into dash attack. but instead I chose to basically pressure shield if he dropped and shielded, and then immediately reset to most likely start a projectile game.
Right.
So if you can analyze that as the game begins, you automatically have an advantage on your opponent, and that's a huge part of the fundamental aspect of the game of just knowing what you're up against right away.
Yeah. So let me just look at my list really quick here.
Mm-hmm.
Let me break this down really quick. A lot of these fundamentals don't come into play all the time. Most of them come into play more subtly than others, and then certain situations arise that spike a certain fundamental, I would say.
I would agree.
For example, when you're in this position, your space if you play a character that has a projectile, your spacing is basically always fired up. Like, you're always aware of how your projectiles are spaced.
Mm-hmm.
But a character like Kirby, you're not going to be worried about that. You're more worried about, I need to get in.
Right.
How am I going to do that?
And I think spacing games, it's active at all times to a
different degree depending on your positioning.
Right. So for Toon Link, his spacing is always how safely can I get projectiles? Where can I throw them to make them kind of react and get into a disadvantaged state? Whereas Kirby's spacing is more Kirby has to get in because Kirby doesn't have projectiles. So your spacing is basically Toon Link spacing. Yeah. You're playing Toon Link spacing game. You're understanding his projectiles and you're trying to get in on that.
Yep.
So you're analyzing basically during that how Toon Link's spacing can work, how the player spaces. So some players might be very straightforward boomerang, just throw it at the shield, run away. Throw it at the shield, run away.
Yep.
Others might try to bounce and force different options. So that's a Toon Link spacing game and a Toon Link wall game that you're playing at all times as Kirby, and you're trying to kind of break through that.
So right after this first interaction, usually the first thing I'll do, especially against someone with a projectile, I'll just hang back here. Only because I want to see if they're going to start running in, or if they're just going to wait. If they wait, I'll run in and try and force something. But against someone with a projectile, I already know, at this point, if you go back to where you were before, at this point in the game, I'm at a disadvantage at this point. Not only do I have more percent than you, but I have no way of getting in without having to go through a projectile at this point.
Right.
And I have two options. I think you're going to bounce the boomerang, and I can duck under it and then run or walk, or you're going to throw it straight at me and I'm just going to get hit. Either because I picked the wrong option or I didn't shield. Wow, that's far. So it was only the first interaction of the game, but you need to be aware of your position at all times. So if I somehow get in here, if he throws a boomerang, if he bounces the boomerang, and I run in and I get this grab, and he's up here, if he jumps up after that down throw and he gets above me, he's in a really bad spot at this point.
Right, and that goes into that disadvantage versus advantage state. So now Kirby has his whole arsenal of options available to him.
Right.
Every move is a viable idea right now. Whereas Toon Link, by being in the air, he's automatically taken away his ground options.
Right, which I think at least against Kirby he needs, because if he's in the air, up tilt will.
Yeah, I have to respect a lot of Kirby's ground options. So now I'm in a disadvantaged state, and now my mentality has to switch from I need to wall him out in space with my projectiles into how do I reset to neutral.
Right.
That's always the most important thing when looking at your disadvantaged state. I need to be back in neutral, or I need to reset into an advantage state if he overextends. So, and one thing a lot of mid-level players will do is if they get hit and they're falling, a lot of mid-level players drift back towards their opponent. They feel the need to always kind of be in that action.
Yes.
And I think especially against a lot of the high-tier characters like Zero Suit, like Sheik, especially Rosalina, you don't want to kind of drift back. You're allowing them that option. There's nothing wrong with moving to the ledge.
Yeah.
And if Kirby just hits me, and
let's say if I forward smash him here, and there's no point in jumping back up.
Right.
You should go straight to ledge.
I should come here, and now I have different various other options, and now that we're playing basically a whole mind game at the ledge.
Right.
But that's for that extension of of neutral and disadvantage advantage. Ledge game is a whole nother topic that we'll probably cover at some point.
The thing is, we could break these down.
Like super in depth.
Yeah.
We could analyze them for like
This is
hours.
just a really basic, like, this is kind of like an amalgamation of flow between all of them. Because neutral is basically, when you're in neutral, if you're in a state where two characters don't have advantage over each other, in true neutral, you have all your options, then you have to be aware of everything that's happening because your position might change instantly, like literally in an instant. Because if Link, so in this situation, if I'm farther away, I'm in disadvantage. If I'm here, I'm probably more. This is probably true neutral for both of us at this point. If I'm here, I'm at the advantage. But literally, look, one Foxtrot and I'm in an advantage state.
Yep.
For Kirby, because I now have the option to grab.
Whereas, and then like Toon Link, I can run away and throw a boomerang, and now you have to respect the boomerang, and I can reset into my neutral that I want you to play.
So it's more like being aware of your own spacing, like your own options at that moment in neutral, because while you may have all your options available, one movement can cut off an option. And you need to be aware of what options are best anytime neutral shifts. I mean, if you were to really like analyze a second by second video, neutral changes very quickly.
Oh, absolutely.
It does not stay in neutral for very long.
And then, so like when we're talking about options and things like that, that goes into that like selecting the correct option and option coverage and things like that. So like with Toon Link, if I throw boomerang down, I'm very clearly trying to cover either the instant dash forward. So if he doesn't dash right away, like I'm not that concerned because now I have time to react, or the possible jump.
Right.
So like I'm trying to take away two options there and force him into like my own game. Whereas Kirby, based on that, like has a few options to be able to select through that scenario.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that amalgamation of what neutral really is which options do I have available versus which options does my opponent have available.
Yeah. How am I going to put myself in an advantage state as much as possible?
And I think the sooner that players start to look at it that way when they're playing in tournament, because a lot of players will just like, when they're playing, I mean, we all started as mid-level. We all started as low-level. Somewhere in there, I think.
Yeah, very low level for me. I got 3 stocked by a Gandorf, son.
But, like, when I started competitive play, like, I knew about options. I was like, I started as a Rosalina main, so I was like, I know I have up throw, up air. Like, I know if I grab them, I can tack on 30, 40%. But it's not like, you don't want to go into a match thinking, oh, I have to up throw him. You want to go into a match kind of understanding, how do I get up throw?
You know what, there's this really, like, let's say you're Mario. Like, just pretend you're Mario, and you're on the ledge, and they're at, like, 80%. If they're at 0%, you have no reason not to down throw. You want to tack on the damage. And they're probably going to fly towards the ledge if you're facing it. Now, if they're at 80, or, not 80, let's say, like, 140, why would you down throw when you can just forward throw and get them off the stage, put you, like, think of how much time if they don't get KO'd because they're heavier. Think of the time it takes them to get back. And you have flood. You could flood them and keep them up there. Like, they have time they're not going to be sitting there calmly thinking, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm being flooded." They're going to be like, "I need to get back to this stage or I'm going to die."
And that's it. That's really the other big aspect. Like Smash Brothers and fighting games in general, it's 50% input and your tech skill and how quickly you can basically react to situations, and then 50% mental.
Yeah. So like that. What I'm saying is though, like, so like if you get a punish off that, you need to be very aware of exactly where you are and what's going on, because if you don't, you're going to make a suboptimal punish.
Yeah, and I think that your forward throw example is really good to go into kind of a stage control transition. Yeah. So the big thing that I always view stage control as is, like, if I have Cappy way on the ledge here, and, like, he has nowhere to go, which is amazing. Like, I can pressure him, I can start jabbing, nairing, and things like that, and he has to respect that. I have a disjoint, he has to play around that, and so him having to get around me is fantastic. Like, he's closer to the blast zone, there's a lot of benefits to that. In my mind, the biggest benefit to stage control is not the distance between me and him, so it's not the Zera length here, it's all the space behind me that I have to work with.
Yeah.
I mean, I have all of this stage to kind of play back. So Cappy, as Kirby, has no space to retreat unless he goes off stage, giving up, like, putting him into an even more disadvantaged state. Whereas if I decide, oh, I'm going to pull back in Zaire because he's starting to get in on me, this has changed nothing now. He's starting to dash at me now, which obviously is something. But if we start pulling back here, and now we reset into a neutral state, a true neutral, we're back to playing each other's mind games. We're back to playing the spacing game and things like that.
Kirby was... I've basically been given the chance to mount an offense at this point, where I really didn't have it here unless I was really crafty and started, and abused Kirby's, better neutral state, which is up here, where he can actually kind of do something. He can at least attempt to weave around something or come back to the stage, because a lot of characters can't reach Kirby up there. But, a character with the usual double jump is not going to be, double jump from the ledge. Double jump from the ledge to the center. Notice how much, that's a lot he probably couldn't do.
Yeah, I mean,
And if he wants to attack, he's below the opponent. He's above the opponent, and that's an awful place to be.
So my options are really limited.
Because I can just do that.
Yeah.
If
my
I'm
options,
just sitting here...
Basically, if I'm coming down like that, I have very few options. I can land with an aerial, I can tomahawk and try to grab you, or I can try to just drift away and, maybe air dodge. But, again, you're forcing that opponent to have very few options, and you're covering those specific options. You're in a disadvantaged state without access to all of your tools.
Yeah, and the reason why reaction is so important. Can you go back above me and air dodge? Just jump above me and air dodge. Okay. If he does this, and you can catch that, that's amazing.
That's like a stock. Half the time.
I mean, not right now. Not only does it, it does a few things. One, your opponent is going to be afraid that his defensive options aren't working the way they should be. If he air dodges and I up tilt instantly afterwards and he gets hit, he's like, "Oh, I just got hit after that? What's going on?" And suddenly he'll start panicking more if he gets hit. A lot of players, once they start getting hit, it affects them if they don't have the mental fortitude to get through it. So if you can react, imagine if I run in, and the first thing he does, he expects a grab. So the first thing he does is spot dodge. Look at that. If you could, imagine if you couldn't react to that though. Imagine if you you saw it and you were like, "Oh, something," or you're or you just miss it and you miss a back air or something like that. That's even worse because they're in a better state if you whiff a punish than you are, unless you're being really safe about it. But if you can react quick enough, you can catch so much stuff. Imagine if he's just short hop above me and pause. Okay, no, do yeah, there you go. Okay, if I'm not prepared to react to a nair or something, then I'm going to get hit.
And I think that goes really well into the option coverage and option selects and things like that. By Toon Link jumping, he's committed to an option.
Yeah.
Everything that you really do is a commitment. When you dash, you take away some of your options. When you jump, you take away some of your options. The only time you're not committed to anything is when you're either standing or when you're walking.
Yep.
So those two states obviously are really
very good.
Yeah, they're very good. So if you can use them, crouching too, I guess.
Yes. Well, crouching with tilt stick really.
Yeah.
It's really hard to up tilt from a crouch.
So those are times when you're not committed. Everything else is a commitment. So when you analyze when someone's coming at you and they jump, you know that their options are very selective. They're coming in for a specific thing, and that kind of plays off of reading your opponent and adaptation in that. You need to understand based on the character and based on the opponent how what options they're looking for.
Yeah.
Some players are very reverse aerial rush heavy. They'll be coming in short hopping for back airs because it's safe on shield. Some characters or some players very tomahawk heavy. They're going to jump, empty land, and try to grab you. But like all of these options have very, very specific like weak points because they've committed to it. You can now kind of play around it.
Yeah. So let's say that every time pause. Every time I get, every time someone comes close to me, or like rushes in, and every time I'm near the ledge and someone runs close to me after just throwing out moves, I do this every single time. If all Sage has to do is now here's the thing: if you can't react well enough, you have to at least be able to pick up on habits. Ideally, you want both, because you can pick up on habits more quickly. But let's say Sage always remembers that. So he, instead of completing it, he just stops. And then if I were at a higher percent, I'd be dead. But
that was still like 15, 16% that you just ate for free.
There's nothing I could do. I just sat there and took it because I rolled in because I was afraid. I see people do this all the time. Have you ever, it's the worst. Have you ever seen someone near the ledge who rolls back into the ledge?
Yes. So many times, he started the roll at the correct time, and if he was anywhere else, he would have been fine.
But I can't.
Yeah,
there's nothing you can do.
Or that's with Toon Link Grab.
And here's the thing. A lot of these habits that people have that you need to identify come from panic. That's what I always call it. It's panic. Every time someone has a tick, it's because they're not thinking about their play, and they're usually not thinking about it because they're in panic.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm being pressured, people want to get out, and they don't think about how they're going to get out. They just want to get out. And if that means rolling backwards, then that's what they're going to do. So Sage could just charge an up smash, and I could sit here and I would be like, if Sage does forward smash, and then I roll, then he can up smash me right after it.
Yeah, obviously.
And you see this all the time.
I think that's one of the biggest things is your ability to control yourself when you're under stress or pressure. That's one of the biggest things that really separates even that. I think high level to top level. I think mid to high is a different skill gap of fundamentals and things. But when you have your fundamentals down, that's the last one that I feel like most people kind of get under control for your fundamentals.
I mean, I would go as far as say it's adapting to yourself.
Yeah,
you're readapting your own play, and
yeah.
not just adapting to your opponents.
All right. So is there any other points you wanted to touch up on here?
I think everything.
I think we covered a lot of it.
So
this was a general kind of.
And it flies around a lot, but I think the point, if you're getting confused, that it might be because you're not. It might just be that if it's hard to understand, it might be because you don't yet have that awareness of all the fundamentals that are coming into play.
Mm-hmm.
Sage and I are just talking about these specific interactions, but there's so much that goes into each little interaction that happens in this game. The point of this fundamentals video, we'll probably tackle each one in depth.
Yeah, we're gonna do each one individually, like a full-on breakdown.
Yeah.
We probably play a match and talk about each one as it happens.
Yeah. But the thing here is that it's very, very volatile the way neutral happens.
Yeah. You really have to have a really quick grasp of it,
and you need to be able to you need to keep thinking. The point of this video, if you can keep up with us, you're probably on the right track, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I think
transitioned
pretty quickly.
Yeah, so we were talking about a lot of stuff, and if you were able to kind of keep up with that, you probably have at least an understanding of it. And I think then from there, the best place to go is self-analysis and see which one of the topics that you really need to kind of break down. And I'm going to go ahead and in the description we'll link. Cappy does really awesome writing, guys. He has an awesome blog post that he does about improvement and mindset and fundamentals and things like that. We'll go ahead and link the post that he was talking about earlier with his list.
Yes.
Yeah, so that'll be in the description. Be sure to check that out, definitely. As this man just hop cancels.
I write a post for Smash at least once a month, I think. At least I'm trying to.
Yeah, I've seen it as
I've
seen it as quickly as every other week. I've seen it once-ish a month. It just
Yeah.
depends. But we'll probably link at least one in each description, kind of going over what we just talked about.
They're
So
a
if
very
you
good
want-
supplement.
Yeah. So, but next video we'll be breaking down each one. If you guys want to let us know which one you'd like to see first.
Yeah, actually, let's hold off until we see which one people want the most.
Yeah, so we can go over anything like stage control. We can go over adaptation. We can go over the 3 states.
Yeah, spacing, positional awareness, covering options. Covering options will most likely be with a very neutral character, probably Mario or something.
Yeah, it'll probably be like a Mario versus Mario type thing.
It'll be probably a Mario versus like another top tier, but like someone that's very general that a lot of people use. Or Sheik, Mario versus Sheik would be really good.
Yeah. So and then we have other stuff that's coming out that'll be matchups type stuff.
Matchups, training.
Training. That's
Training methods will probably be our next one.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about training with bots and training with people
Humans,
and things like that, and the benefits and downsides of both. And then the last thing is, guys, we'll also have we have a couple like other random topics I think we're going to talk about. Like I think at one point I'm going to do a whole video on like projectiles and things like that.
Oh yeah.
How we were talking earlier.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So be on the lookout for that, guys. We're going to try to do this at least.
At the minimum once a month.
At the minimum once a month. My ideal goal will be once every other week. So as the tournament schedule slows down leading into summer, this will become a lot more regular, and then summer will probably break it down. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the video. We're going to go ahead and sign it off here. And, yeah, thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.
Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, whatever.
Yeah.
You can follow me at @UR_Sage.
You can follow me at Cappy321.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
See ya.